I, 28 male, never thought I'd end up here, writing about the nightmare my life has turned into. Growing up, I had what I thought was a normal family. My parents, Susan, 56 female, and Mark, 59 male, were hardworking and always supportive of me. My dad, a calm and steady man, worked tirelessly to ensure our family was financially secure, while my mom was the ambitious dreamer, always coming up with big plans and ideas for how to improve our lives. But as I've come to learn, that ambition often wasn't a good trait. For most of my life, we lived in a beautiful house that had been in my dad's family for generations. It wasn't a mansion by any means, but it had character. Creaky wooden floors, a sprawling garden, and memories etched into every corner. My grandparents lived there, my dad grew up there, and when I came along, it became the backdrop for my own childhood. That house was more than just a building. It was a piece of our family's history. About a year ago, my mom started talking about this incredible investment opportunity. She said it was a once-in-a-lifetime chance to make millions. She had connections, important people who were already involved, and she was convinced that if we sold the family home, we could invest the money and secure a future that none of us could even imagine. She painted a vivid picture, a luxurious life, financial freedom, and the ability to leave a legacy even greater than the house itself. My dad was hesitant at first. He loved that house and the memories it held. But my mom is persuasive, and she had a way of making you feel like you're foolish for doubting her. She assured him that this was for the family, for our future, and that it would be irresponsible not to take the chance. She played on his love for her, on his trust, and on his desire to provide for me. Reluctantly, he agreed. I remember the day we sold the house vividly. My dad looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. He tried to put on a brave face, but I could tell how much it hurt him. My mom, on the other hand, was ecstatic. She was full of energy, talking about all the things we'd be able to do once the investment paid off. She even said we could buy back the house and more once we'd made our millions. Except none of that happened. Shortly after the sale, my mom started acting distant. She'd always been the type to keep a busy social life, but now she was disappearing for days at a time. She said it was related to the investment, that she needed to meet with people, travel, and finalize deals. My dad, ever trusting, believed her. I wasn't so sure. One day, my dad came home to an empty house. My mom was gone. No note, no explanation, just gone. It didn't take long to figure out where she'd gone. She'd run off with another man, and not just any man, but someone she'd been having an affair with for years. All the money from the house sale? Gone too. She'd funneled it into accounts we couldn't access, leaving my dad and me with nothing. The betrayal was like a punch to the gut. My dad was devastated. He blamed himself for trusting her, for selling the house, for not seeing the signs. And to me, I was furious. How could she do this to us, to him, to the family she'd claimed to love so much? But it gets worse. Recently, my mom reached out. She didn't apologize or attempt to make amends. Instead, she asked me to come live with her and her affair partner. She said she was divorcing my father because, in her words, he's a loser, and she planned to marry her affair partner. I was so shocked I could barely respond, but I managed to say, no way. That's when her threats started. She told me that once her so-called investment pays off, she plans to leave everything to her affair partner's daughter. She said I didn't need anything from her because, as a man, I could provide for myself. She claimed that this girl needed her more and deserved to inherit everything she has. I hung up on her. I was speechless. Not only had she destroyed our family and taking everything we had, but now she was rewriting history, acting like I was some afterthought in her life. She's framing it as though she's being generous and maternal, but it's just another slap in the face. My dad's health has been declining since all this happened. The stress, the heartbreak, it's taken a toll. We're renting a small apartment now, and while we're getting by, it's a far cry from the life we had before. My dad refuses to badmouth my mom, even after everything she's done. He says he doesn't want to tarnish my view of her, but I think he's just too hurt to talk about it. I, on the other hand, have no such reservations. I've told her exactly what I think of her. I told her she's selfish, manipulative, and cruel. I told her that she's ruined our family and that she has no right to pretend she's some kind of savior to her affair partner's daughter. Her response? She called me ungrateful. She said I should be happy for her, that she's finally living the life she's always wanted. She even had the audacity to tell me that selling the house was for my benefit too, that it was a necessary sacrifice to secure a better future for all of us. As if that excuses the fact that she took everything and ran. The house wasn't just a property, it was a part of who we were. My grandparents built their lives in it, and my dad poured his soul into preserving it. And now it's gone, along with everything it represented. I've blocked her on everything, but she still finds ways to get under my skin. She's told mutual friends and family members that I'm bitter, that I'm clinging to the past, and that I need to get over it and think about her happiness for once. Some of them have even taken her side, saying that I should be happy for her if she's found love and fulfillment. They act like I'm the bad guy for not supporting her new family, which is mind-blowing. Reddit. Am I the a-hole for refusing to forgive my mom and for cutting her out of my life completely? OP's mom's actions are beyond selfish. They're outright cruel. She didn't just betray OP's dad, she betrayed OP too. And now she's trying to act like OP is the problem? It's so manipulative and honestly disgusting. OP is absolutely justified in cutting her out. OP needs to protect his peace and not let anyone guilt him into thinking otherwise. And now let's hear the community's opinion. I feel for your dad so much. It sounds like he's a kind and trusting man who gave everything to a woman who didn't deserve it. The fact that he's not bad-mouthing her shows what a good person he is, but it's heartbreaking that he's blaming himself for her actions. You're doing the right thing by standing by him and helping him rebuild. Your mom's logic is completely warped. She's trying to justify abandoning her family and stealing from you by claiming this new girl needs her more. That's not love. That's her trying to rewrite the narrative to make herself look good. You owe her absolutely nothing. Focus on your dad and yourself. You both deserve better. The audacity of your mom is unreal. She destroys your family, steals everything, and then has the nerve to ask you to move in with her and her affair partner? And now she's spreading lies to make herself look like the victim? I'm so angry on your behalf. Don't let anyone tell you to forgive her unless she shows true remorse, which, from the sounds of it, she never will. My husband and I ended up freezing some embryos years ago due to medical issues. We used them to have our now 4 children, and we now feel that we have enough. At the time of this conversation, we still had 3 left over, and we had been debating on what to do with them. Her husband is horrible. They got married before my husband and I met. He's done so many horrible things, both in general and to her. I've had so many talks with her about how she deserves better and how unacceptable his actions are. We're all now in our late 30s, and they are now trying to have kids and can't because they waited too long at his insistence. They're now looking at donor material, and she came to me. Absolutely not. This man shouldn't be a father, and definitely not to my at least biological children. I was vague and tried to avoid a real answer, but they pushed too hard on why. We deserve to have all those extra embryos, and I lost my temper a little. I ended up telling him that we, think he's a terrible person. In no way should he have children, and she would only get my biological help if she dropped him like a diseased fish. Honestly, I hate him so much. This whole thing, and the knowledge that we would only get more and more requests from them, led us to the decision that we needed to use them ourselves. It worked, and we had a single pregnancy. We've been getting some comments from friends and family that we had a child out of spite, and we're not better than anyone we have problems with. I don't know that that's true. We just couldn't destroy them, and also couldn't trust anyone else. Not the a-hole. You can refuse to give your embryos to anyone, regardless of what kind of person they are. It's your embryos. It's nobody but you and your husband's choice alone. Just hope they don't hate that child and treat them badly. Not the a-hole. You and your husband planned ahead and made sure to freeze your embryos to ensure you'd be able to have children. Your friend and her husband did not, despite choosing to wait and wait. Their entitled attitude makes them the a-hole. They have no right to comment on what you choose to do with your embryos. Everyone sucks here. You did in fact have a child out of spite, and now it's quite likely that these friends might eventually send your kid messages about the nature of their birth. Good luck. I have a feeling you'll need it. Everyone sucks here. Geez, what the actual heck? Okay, 1. Her choice who she's with. 2. While you can have opinions on it, you basically used an unborn child as a ducking bargaining chip. Like, who does that? You flaunted what you have and she can't have. 3. They both sound kinda entitled and should have just accepted no, hence why they suck as well. 4. It kinda sounds like you decided to have another kid because, oh well, they're there. 5. While your friend is being self-centered in the whole, "you're doing this despite me," you can kinda see her ducked-up logic, considering you made the choice to have said kid after you gave her the ultimatum. 6. Circling back slightly because, what the duck? Why didn't you make the decision to try with the eggs before you snapped and gave her said ultimatum? Because again, it sounds like you've gone, well, if she chooses to stay with the guy, we might as well use them. Me and my ex split 6 years ago and divorced, and we were together for 7 years before that. I'm 36, she's 38. A couple of years before the split, she was diagnosed with cervical cancer and had to have a hysterectomy. We weren't sure we wanted kids, but because we couldn't rule it out, we had some embryos stored. The relationship ultimately didn't last, and we got divorced and went our separate ways. I haven't seen her since not long after the divorce. Now I'm engaged to my fiancée, 30 female, and we have decided we would possibly like kids in the next few years after we're married. But in no rush. Out of the blue on Monday, I get an email from her asking to call. I sat on it for a couple of days. The split wasn't that good, to be honest, but decided to call her. She basically says she's in a relationship now, with a woman. She was bi when we met, so not that strange. And they're looking at having kids. Basically, because she has been keeping the embryos, they're going to use them and wanted to let me know as a courtesy. She said she has no plans to have me involved, and I can sign anything I want to in regards to legal rights, and her partner will be the parents. Not gonna lie, I'm not happy about this at all, and I told her so. I said no way. She said she is telling me as a courtesy, and she's going through with it regardless, and if I don't like it, I should take legal action. I was like, I ducking will, don't worry about that. My fiancé is definitely on my side and says she backs me 100%, and we'll fight it together. She feels the same as me, that when we do have kids, we don't want them to have half-siblings out there somewhere that they could meet and get into a relationship with. And also, we don't want some kid knocking on the door in, say, 15 years, asking questions. Plus, notwithstanding the chance they could try and get me for child support, despite what my ex says. She's not very trustworthy. When I told my mom, however, she said it shouldn't make a difference to me in my relationship. And even if I don't want a relationship with this kid, her and my dad would gladly be in its life if I didn't want to be. Am I the a-hole for saying no? Edit. I did sign the care of embryos to her in the divorce. It was a bad split, and I just wanted her out of my life. Edit 2. The more I read about it and talk to people, there's a very good chance I may not have a legal right to stand on. So in that case, I'll see if I can make sure I have no chance of being pursued for child support. Get some sort of restraining order or legal guarantee that they won't contact me, and tell my parents I don't want them getting involved. If they want to be a family, ex and partner, I don't see why this should be an issue. Edit 3. I can see that in the UK I do have the legal right to contest this. A few posters have posted a link verifying it. I'm definitely talking to a solicitor now. Yes, the a-hole. Since you gave them up in the divorce, you have no say. Yes, the a-hole. Based on your comment that you gave up the embryos in the divorce, they are legally hers to do with as she likes, and she was being kind letting you know she would be using them. Also, she had cervical cancer and a hysterectomy, and you are begrudging her this? You are being petty and small. Yes, the a-hole. This is her only option to have biological children. If you donated sperm, you wouldn't consider any subsequent children to be half-siblings to kids conceived with your donor sperm. Just think of this as the same basic thing, and allow her to try to have a baby. Make sure you have no legal obligation. I, 51 male, have been dating my girlfriend Millie for just over 6 months. My wife died 4 years ago, and this is my longest relationship since. However, my daughter Bianca, 21 female, disapproves. She has a lot of issues with me and Millie, but the main ones are the way we met, through a website, and that I moved Millie into our house fairly quickly, after 3 months. In my defense, losing my wife much earlier than I had ever imagined really taught me to seize and enjoy each moment, and it just felt right to both of us to have Millie there with me permanently. 2 months ago, Bianca and Millie got in dispute over our spare room, which Bianca uses as a music space, but Millie wanted to convert into a shooting space for social media, which is her job. I took Millie's side since she's going to be here longer term, so Bianca sped up her plans to move out to the next week and asked that I warn her if Millie's going to be present at any event or visit. Anyway, Last week I thought it would be nice to treat Millie for her birthday, and she asked for a shopping trip and dinner out, which I was happy to do. The issue is, she specifically asked to go to a restaurant where Bianca works as a waitress, since it's known as one of the most exclusive and classy places in our town. I knew Bianca was working that day, but figured it would be alright since it's a large restaurant and a special occasion. When we arrived, we were given another server, so I thought everything was okay. About 15 minutes later, Bianca walked out from the kitchen and immediately saw us sitting there, then walked straight back without even saying hi. She kept passing the table and silently glaring daggers at Millie, which was just unnecessary when Millie tried to be polite. Millie then asked Bianca for the bill, because she was the nearest waitress, and Bianca slapped it down on the table wordlessly, then sent another waitress to see us out. Later, I called her and asked why she had behaved like a child. Bianca said that me and Millie had been deliberately flirting to upset her, which is untrue. The most that happened was a couple of kisses and a bit of footsie, giggling. Bianca also claims that when I briefly left to use the toilet, Millie called her over and told her not to contact me for the next few days, as we would be too busy engaging in private activities. I find it hard to believe Bianca, because Millie has made an effort to bond with her through organizing girly activities among other things, while Bianca has a history of manipulating others to get her way. Bianca then told me she wants no contact with Millie or me, apart from at family gatherings. My family is split over the issue, and my ex-wife's sister called to cuss me out for neglecting Bianca, who is still grieving her mother. Am I the a-hole? Yes, the a-hole. You could withhold from playing footsie while in your daughter's workspace. You could have waited and asked any other waitress for the check. You could have waited and gone a different day when daughter wasn't working. Your daughter was living there, and you're moving in a new woman after 3 months and replacing her room she was currently using. You could have waited until she moved out. I'm also really curious to how old your new daughter is. Yes, the a-hole. You've behaved awfully to your family for a random you've known for 6 months. Get a grip, dude. Yes, the a-hole. Why in the hell did you think taking her to your daughter's place of work was a good idea? Are you really that stupid? Were y'all just trying to provoke your daughter? Your daughter is going to end up completely cutting you out of her life. Maybe you should think about her feelings the next time you side with your child bride. 21 and late 20s, which I'm assuming means probably around 26 or 27. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been so vague about it. Is not that far apart. Yes, the a-hole. I don't even care about the restaurant thing, but you accelerated your daughter's plans to move out for someone you've been dating for, what, 4 months at that point? You couldn't have waited until she was gone? She feels displaced and hurt, and she has every right to feel that way. I, 52 male, have a daughter B, 23 female, who got married last week to her wife E, 24 female. They had been dating just under a year and decided to have an intimate wedding with me and about 20 other guests. B does not get along with my fiancée M, 29 female. B has no contact at all with M, refuses to come to our house, and has been quite low contact with me for the last year or so because of an argument she had with M. As expected, B did not invite M to the wedding, but invited me as a guest. M said she did not mind if I went without her, which I thought was very gracious in the face of rudeness. However, we recently found out that M is a few weeks pregnant with our first child, and she has been anxious and having panic attacks all the way through her pregnancy. The morning of the wedding, I found M crying on the sofa and literally shaking. I asked what was wrong, and she said she felt very panicky and unsafe alone. I offered to stay home since she was so ill, and I was worried about her, but she insisted I go to the wedding. I was too concerned to go without her, so I messaged E, informed her of the situation, and that M would be coming with me in case she had a medical emergency while I was away. E did not respond until we were already dressed up and halfway to the venue. E told us that M was not to set foot at the wedding, but at that point, I had no other option, and I wanted to be there for B. It did not go well. B did not speak to me the whole way through the wedding, and kept giving ugly looks to M. At the reception, there obviously wasn't a place set for M, and an extra chair had to be squeezed in. But I cut some food and fed her off my own plate, so I did not think it was a big deal. E came to me after dinner, said that B was not doing a father-daughter dance with me, and gave me a list of complaints. She said she was disgusted by M's dress because it was red, and that M was wrong to introduce herself as stepmother to B, and that M should not have mentioned her pregnancy at all. M only mentioned her pregnancy because she was offered a little cake, and cake makes her sick because of the pregnancy hormones. E told us to leave after dinner, and I agreed, so I did not upset B. However, when M stood up, her stomach cramped and she fell over. It only made a tiny scene, but I rushed her out and we sat in another room for 20 minutes until she felt better. E's mother came in at that point while I was just calming M down and made us get out. Since then, E and M's maternal family have been sending me angry messages about how rude we were, and E has told me they want no contact for the foreseeable future. I really meant well, and I just wanted to make everyone happy. But am I the a-hole? Edit. Since I've been asked a lot in the comments, M and B originally fell out because A. M took over B's old hobby room in my house. B. My daughter feels that M is too affectionate towards me when she is around. And C. B disapproves of me meeting M online. Hope that helps. Yes, the a-hole. B hates M and wasn't invited. But you brought her to her intimate wedding anyway. Are you stupid? M sounds awful. She guilted you into taking her, wore an inappropriate outfit, mentioned her pregnancy in an attempt to upstage your daughter, introduced herself as B's stepmom despite being 6 years older than her. Finally, she caused a scene to draw even more attention to her pregnancy. You ruined your own daughter's wedding. Extra a-hole creep points for marrying a woman half your age and starting a replacement family. Yes, the a-hole. Your fiancé is only a few weeks pregnant, and cake makes her sick because of hormones? Her stomach cramped and she fell over? Only made a tiny scene. Your much younger fiancé sounds like a terrible, attention-seeking witch, and you chose your new family over the very clear requests of your daughter. Enjoy being cut out of her life. This is Bianca talking, after I saw my dad's post and my roommate encouraged me to try to defend myself. What my dad says has grains of truth, but is so far from the full story it's basically BS. My mom did die when I was 17, and me and dad were actually very close. He started dating again a couple years after she died, and I was always very supportive, until Millie came along. Regardless of what Dad says, me and Millie had an emotional relationship lasting several months, which ended in a massive bust-up, and us losing contact, and he was aware of this when I told him I recognized her. He brushed it aside and told me I would get used to it, and we would be introduced gradually. I was stupid and believed his crap. He moved her into the house without asking me, while I was visiting Mom's family for the week. She did not try to bond with me. She used our shopping days and trips as an excuse to get money off Dad for herself. She cried and begged Dad until he got rid of my music room, and he fell for it. I asked him not to be intimate when I was around because I was uncomfortable. They ignored me. Millie and Dad have since tried to contact me regularly and have shown up in unexpected places. They showed up at my church. They have apparently visited my work and asked my friends if I'm there. They have even tried messaging me to ask when I'm visiting Mom's grave, and I want them to join. They are despicable people who deserve to be cut off. I would love to hear Dad's explanation of why I'm manipulative. I, 30 male, haven't spoken to my father, John, 63 male, in over a decade. The last time we talked, he disowned me. He said I was selfish, ungrateful, and that he wanted to focus on his new family. At the time, I was 20 and trying to figure out my life. But his decision cut deeper than I ever let him know. Now, all these years later, he's come crawling back, and I have no intention of making it easy for him. Growing up, my dad was my hero. My mom passed away when I was 8, and he did everything he could to raise me on his own. He worked long hours as a contractor and made sure I never felt like I was missing out. We weren't rich, but we were happy. When I was 15, my dad met Linda, then 35 female. She was charming, energetic, and seemed to make him genuinely happy. At first, I was thrilled for him. I wanted him to have someone to share his life with, someone who could fill the void left by my mom. But things changed quickly after they got married. Linda didn't like me. She never said it outright, but it was obvious. She'd make snide remarks about how grown I was for my age and how I should learn to stand on my own 2 feet. She'd convince my dad to enforce stricter rules and complain that I was a burden. And when her 2 kids, Emily, then 12 female, and Ryan, then 10 male, moved in, I felt like a stranger in my own home. Suddenly, my dad's attention was split, and Linda made sure her kids got the lion's share. Emily and Ryan were no better. Emily, the older of the 2, acted like she was queen of the house. She'd boss me around, demand that I do her chores, and mock me for being just the son of the help. She'd make cruel comments about how Linda and my dad were her parents now, and how I was just an outsider. Ryan wasn't much different. He'd go through my belongings, take my stuff without asking, and when I'd confront him, Linda would brush it off, saying he's just a kid. The few times I stood up for myself, my dad would side with Linda and tell me to be the bigger person. Linda's rules were another level of unfair. Emily and Ryan had no curfews, got new clothes every season, and had the latest gadgets, while I was expected to make do with hand-me-downs or nothing at all. If I complained, Linda would roll her eyes and say something like, "Your dad's money isn't endless, you know." But that didn't stop her from taking family trips without me. I'd come home to find the house empty, only to learn later they'd gone to Disneyland or the beach without even telling me. The worst part was the way Linda manipulated my dad. She'd constantly whisper in his ear, painting me as lazy, ungrateful, or disrespectful. It was like she was building a case against me, slowly but surely turning him against me. My dad, wanting to keep the peace, went along with whatever she said. I felt like I was losing him little by little, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't win back his trust or attention. By the time I turned 18, things had reached a breaking point. I'd graduated high school and was working part-time while taking classes at a community college. My relationship with my dad was strained, and Linda took every opportunity to drive a wedge between us. She'd whisper to him about how I wasn't pulling my weight and how I needed to step up and contribute. Then came the ultimatum. My dad sat me down one evening and told me it was time for me to move out. He said I needed to learn responsibility and that he and Linda had decided it was best for everyone. I couldn't believe it. I was working, going to school, and trying my best to navigate adulthood, but it wasn't enough. Linda had convinced him that I was dead weight, and he sided with her. I left with whatever I could fit in my car and moved in with a friend. Over the next 2 years, our contact dwindled to nothing. The final straw came when my dad officially disowned me. He reached out and asked me to loan him money for a lavish vacation he wanted to take with Linda and her kids. I'd already heard about their extravagant lifestyle, weekend trips, expensive dinners, and flashy new gadgets, and I couldn't stomach the idea of contributing to it. I told him no. He called me selfish, greedy, and ungrateful, and said he didn't want anything to do with me anymore. Hearing those words broke something in me. I stopped reaching out and decided to build my own life without him. Fast forward 10 years. I've worked hard to build a stable life for myself. I've got a good job, a supportive partner, and friends who feel more like family than my own ever did. I'd made peace with the fact that my dad chose Linda and her kids over me. But last month, I got a message from an unknown number. It was my dad. He said he needed to talk and begged me to call him. Against my better judgment, I did. What he told me left me stunned. Linda had left him. Apparently, she'd been siphoning money from their joint accounts for years and ran off with some guy she met online. Emily and Ryan, now adults, wanted nothing to do with him. He was broke, alone, and desperate. He asked if we could meet and said he wanted to make things right. Part of me wanted to hang up and block his number, but another part of me wanted answers. So I agreed to meet him. When we sat down face to face for the first time in a decade, I barely recognized him. He looked older, thinner, and utterly defeated. He apologized over and over. He said he'd made mistakes, that he'd let Linda manipulate him, and that he regretted how things ended between us. He asked if there was any way we could rebuild our relationship. Then came the real reason he reached out. He needed financial help. He said he was struggling to pay his rent and asked if I could loan him some money. I told him I needed time to think and left. The truth is, I didn't need time. I already knew my answer. My dad had made his choice years ago. He'd abandoned me to chase a fantasy with Linda and her kids, and now that his new family had left him high and dry, he wanted me to clean up the mess. It wasn't going to happen. Over the next few days, I thought about how to respond. I wanted to tell him exactly how I felt, to let him know how much his betrayal had hurt me. But I also wanted to take the high road. So I sent him a letter. In it, I told him that while I appreciated his apology, I couldn't overlook the choices he'd made. I reminded him of the night he disowned me and how those words had stayed with me all these years. I told him I'd built a life without him and that I wasn't in a position to help him now, financially or emotionally. He didn't take it well. He called me selfish, said I was holding a grudge, and accused me of being heartless. But I didn't let his words affect me. I'd spent too many years carrying the weight of his decisions, and I wasn't going to let him guilt me into taking responsibility for his mistakes. Some of my friends think I should have helped him, that family is family, and I should have given him a second chance. But others agree that he's reaping what he sowed. I'm still torn. Part of me feels like I did the right thing, while another part wonders if I'll regret not helping him in the future. Reddit. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my dad after he disowned me and chose his new family? Or should I have been the bigger person and helped him in his time of need? OP's dad made his bed, and now he has to lie in it. It's heartbreaking that he chose his new family over OP, but it's not OP's job to clean up the mess they left behind. OP has built a stable life despite everything he put OP through, and OP has every right to protect his peace. Apologies are nice, but they don't erase years of abandonment and betrayal. He's reaping the consequences of his actions, and OP should not let anyone guilt him into taking responsibility for him now. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Wow, this is a textbook case of karma coming full circle. Your dad allowed Linda to poison your relationship and treated you like an afterthought for years. He chose to disown you and focus on a family that clearly didn't value him in the end. While it's sad to see someone fall from grace, that doesn't mean you owe him anything. You're not selfish. You're setting boundaries and refusing to be manipulated again. Stay strong. Honestly, I don't know how you sat across from him and listened to his excuses without losing it. Linda and her kids didn't just mistreat you. They completely alienated you from your own father. And he let that happen. Now he's broke and alone, and suddenly he remembers you exist. The fact that he called you heartless after everything you've been through shows he still doesn't understand the damage he caused. You did the right thing by walking away. It sounds like your dad regrets losing you now that his new family has abandoned him. But where was that regret 10 years ago? It's convenient that he's reaching out now that he needs financial help. He's not entitled to your support just because he's your father, especially after the way he treated you. You're not the a-hole, and I hope you don't let anyone make you feel guilty for prioritizing your own well-being. You deserve better. Would I be the a-hole to my husband and mother-in-law if I refused to give my mother-in-law a home with us? I'm rather shocked today to find myself asking this question, but it just came up last night and today. My husband's brothers and sister-in-laws want us to give my mother-in-law a home. I'm refusing, and my husband, who is an amazing man, is standing by my decision. Background. We've been married 40 years, and to this day, I've never met my mother-in-law due to her refusals. Prior to our marriage, she cut off ties with my husband when he divorced his first wife for cheating on him. His mother says he humiliated and ruined the family by having the first divorce in their family. He refused the career she wanted for him and had arranged for him, and finally, he left New England to live in Texas. I am Texan. 5 years after his divorce, we met and decided to marry. My mother-in-law claimed it wasn't a legal marriage because it took place in Texas. Evidently, Texas is not part of her world. She never accepted our son as her grandchild, and when we got custody of his daughters, his ex-wife developed mental issues and became horrendously aggressive. My mother-in-law renounced them for going to live with their dad and that Texas woman. My mother-in-law stole the money his father and later his grandmother left him. We chose not to fight her over money. So now she's 96. Mean and grouchy, according to my husband's brothers. She needs help with everything. She lived with the other 2 sons for the past 15 years. They feel it's our turn. Here's the problem. I developed 4 types of autoimmune diseases which have robbed me of my strength and many physical abilities. I live in constant pain, and about 7 months ago, I learned I have an untreatable brain tumor. I've been told I possibly have 3 more years. I honestly don't want to live my last years with this woman. She has hurt my husband so much through the last 40 years, and he is truly the best person I've ever known. I won't go into details due to character limits, but he has supported me in every way imaginable. He accepted, loved, and adopted every child I brought home because they were abandoned or mistreated. He treats me like a queen, and the thought of bringing his mother in who will criticize and belittle him is just more than I can bear. This is it for me, my final days. It's a great deal sooner than I planned on and want. We're traveling, loving on our kids and grandkids, having fun, and just loving each other. I'm trying so hard to fill these days with happiness and smiles, so when I'm gone, he'll have joy to remember and not bad times. I know him, and I know how much he'll miss me and how much he already hurts. My husband's brothers told me today if I don't take mother-in-law, my husband will always regret it. My husband says he feels he owes her nothing and owes me everything. He said he'll take her in if I want. Not the a-hole, and tell his brothers that according to her, he's not her son, and y'all already provided financial assistance when she stole his inheritance. She can F off. Not the a-hole. According to your mother-in-law, you're not even family. You owe this woman nothing. Her other kids won't like it, but that's not your problem. Live your life the way you want to. Not the a-hole. Even if you weren't terminally ill, you still wouldn't be obligated to house mother-in-law for any reason at all. She has done nothing to deserve your hospitality, and you deserve to be able to live through the time you have left with peace and happiness alongside people you love. Not the a-hole. You are giving his mother back what she gave you and her son. None of your time and consideration. Guess karma just served his mama a big old helping of Texas payback. Edited. We're going to meet them for breakfast. My husband is telling them absolutely no. For the ones who've said my husband was being weak in his opinion. No. If you knew him, you'd know this man does everything for me and my desires. He said no all along, and I was the one considering taking her in. You see, he left his career and moved our family so we could take care of my parents. He was amazing to my mama and daddy. He's very glad I agreed to say absolutely no. I broke up with my ex after I found out I was pregnant because of how he behaved when I told him. I was living with him at the time, so I moved in with my brother and his family until I could find my own place. My pregnancy has been extremely rough, and my ex wouldn't leave me alone, so my sister-in-law insisted I stay with them for the duration of my pregnancy so that they could make sure I was okay. My brother has a 15-year-old daughter called Amelia. We're very close since I used to babysit her all of the time when she was younger. My sister-in-law found out that Amelia has been sending my ex information about me since I moved in with them. When I asked Amelia why she would do something like that, she started crying and said she did it because she overheard me telling her parents that I miss my ex and that when he first asked her for help, he said the same thing to her and that he was just worried about me, the baby, so she thought she was helping us. My brother was pissed and yelled at her for what she did and made her show us her phone to see what she had sent to him. From the messages, we found out that she was giving him information, pictures, and videos of me in exchange for money. My brother ended up making her give me all of the money she made from spying on me and grounding her. A few days later, it was just me and her at home. She came up to me and begged me to give her the money back because she was saving to take these expensive art classes that her parents couldn't afford. She kept saying she was sorry and that she didn't do any of this to hurt me. I ended up telling her I wouldn't give her the money back, which made her cry again. I did confront my ex about it, but he was not apologetic at all and told me I should have let her keep the money since she was just a kid and this was all his doing, not hers. He also said he wouldn't have had to resort to this if I had just spoken to him myself like an adult. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, and don't give the money back. It was her brother that made her give you the money, and therefore was the punishment. Giving her the money back would be going against your brother's punishment. Not the a-hole. She was taking money to provide information to your ex. I don't care what someone's intentions are. This is a dangerous game to play. This could have had a very real and negative outcome, and your niece should not be rewarded for her actions, regardless of what her intent was. Put the money towards a lawyer, which you clearly need, and tell niece that you have done so. That might make her see the seriousness of the situation, and still punish her by not letting her have the money, but also make her not resent you for just keeping the money. Not the a-hole. Well done for your brother and sister-in-law. They appear to be doing their best by your niece and supportive of you. You didn't make your ex do anything. His crap choices were all his own doing. Avoiding rotten people is the adult thing to do. Spying is what toxic people do. Backstory. I'm 10 years older than my younger sister and have a house about 2 hours from my parents' house where she lives. My sister often stays with me on the weekends because I live a few minutes from a large recreational lake. This is fine, as long as she is quiet and allows me to sleep, as I work 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. shifts all weekend. My sister is very courteous, and I enjoy having her over. However, my sister has been bringing her new friend with her. They drive separately because the friend leaves for summer school on Sunday nights, And my sister is on summer break and often stays until Monday afternoon so we can spend more time together because I work weekends. This friend has been nothing but trouble. She is very loud, obnoxious, and annoying. She often wakes me several times during the night laughing loudly, going in and out of the house and slamming the door, using the microwave, oven timer, etc. I've nicely told her to please keep the noise down, and she always says that she is trying to be quiet, but forgets sometimes that I'm there. The major issue is that the friend continues to park directly behind me in my driveway, where I cannot back out to go to work in the mornings. I go to bed around 8 p.m. on Fridays, and the friend usually arrives at my house later than that, so I can't catch it as it happens. I always have to find her keys in the morning to move the car myself, or if I can't find them, wake her up to move her car. This has almost made me late for work every Saturday for the past 5 weeks. I remind her the next day when I get home to please not park behind me, because there's plenty of street parking. But it never fails for her to be behind me the next Saturday when I leave for work. This week was the last straw. I set up a traffic cone behind my car last night to remind her not to park behind me. When I woke up this morning, I saw that she had moved the cone and parked behind me even though the space behind my sister was empty and there was plenty of street parking in front of my house. I was extremely angry, as this was at least the 5th week I'd told her to not park behind me. I called a tow truck and had her car towed. While I was at work, I got an angry text from the friend asking about her car. I explained to her that I'd had it towed and that she was not to block me in intentionally again, or she was no longer welcome in my house. My sister and her friend both think I'm the a-hole, but I feel that after so many reminders, my actions were justified. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. And why would you allow her in your house? Tell your sister she is welcome, but her friend is not allowed on your property at all, so she can get a hotel. I'm hoping today fixed the issue with the parking, and if it did not, the friend will no longer be welcome. I was accommodating for a long time, and patience is finally up. Not the a-hole. You repeatedly asked her not to park behind you. You left a cone out to remind her, and she still blocked you in. I wouldn't even give her another chance to come over if it were me. You need to sleep, and you need to be able to leave the house on time for work without stressing about someone blocking you in. Also, you deserve basic human decency and respect from anyone who is staying at your house. Since she can't manage to do that, she has no place in your home. Her moving the cone made it obvious it was a power move. She wanted you to know that she had the control, even though it was your house. She's just angry that you showed her how idiotic that was with an even bigger power move. She was counting on you to just swallow it. Not the a-hole. Update. My sister has apologized to me. She was unaware of the times I had to move her friend's car, and only knew about the 2 times I had to wake her friend to find her keys and move the car. The friend did not tell her I was moving her car in the mornings. I tried not to start drama between the 2 of them by calling the friend out in front of my sister, so she truly did not know how I felt. She and I have agreed that the friend is not to come back over, and I doubt she and the friend will remain friends for much longer. Thanks for the clarification that I was not the a-hole. I, 40 female, have been a widow for 4 years and have 3 minor children. My wife left me as the owner of her 4 rental homes. Due to health problems, scoliosis, and knees, I resigned from my last job, and my main source of income is housing. I do design freelance to complement the money I got from my wife's inheritance. I decided to buy a better house for me to live with my kids and renovate the empty rental houses to increase the rent. I also bought another house for rent as well. My family lives well. It's not just luxury, but they live well. But the rent income that is left over goes to my family's medical problems. My son has a vision problem that the health insurance doctor is not specialized in, as well as my doctor. That said, for almost 2 years, I have been renting one of my houses to my sister, Camilla, not her real name, and getting a discount for being a family member. She only pays 70% of the price. But just like I do with all people who pay rent, if you are 3 months late, you will be evicted. My sister, 8 months ago, was fired, just cause, from a job, so she doesn't receive some unemployment benefits, and has been going through a very tight financial situation since my nephew's father disappeared from the map when he found out he had a son. And in the last 7 months, Camilla has not been paying the rent and some house bills too, and this charge has come to me. Despite the discount, this rent is important for the income of the house. I tried to be understanding. I increased my freelance jobs to compensate for this rent. Due to the amount of time I sat, my back pain got so much worse, and there were countless times I had injections in my back to get to sleep. I sent warning letters, I texted, I spoke in person, and she just made excuses. Until it was 3 months late. I gave an eviction order with 30 days of tolerance and warned her by message. She ignored it. After several notifications from the bailiff, I called the police and Camilla was forced to leave the house. Since then, she has been living in a shelter, but will move in with my parents. I offered to pay for the move-in ticket. She declined. I also offered housing for my nephew. She also declined. I'm being called horrible things by my parents and uncles, saying I left my sister and nephew homeless, that I had an inheritance from my wife, I invested in the houses, and that I lived well, so it was selfish of me. I think I'm in my right. Am I the a-hole? Extra. All this is in a contract signed by both of us, and I left a lot of the contract like the fine for this situation. And I didn't ask for the payment of the late rents. I just asked for the eviction. Extra. Following the tip, I didn't offer her to live with me because she is extremely allergic to dog and cat fur. Anaphylactic shock, depending on the situation, and I have both. My nephew is not allergic, so I offered it to him because my sister can't. Well, some information. In the first months, I managed to keep things as they were, but due to my health getting worse, I had to cut my work to 1/3 because not even with medication it was solving. I couldn't let my sister live for free because, as I said, the rest of the house bills go to health care, so it would compromise my son's health, especially since he has a doctor in the capital. Transportation plus consultation, plus exams at the clinic itself. Faced with this and the cut in my work, I had to take it out of the income of the house. So I was tight, and even giving up my medication so as not to be in debt, I was still tight. No medication, more sleepless nights, and more trips to hospital to control the pain. I just couldn't live this way, having the option to improve it. Sadly, this is an example of why you don't want financial involvements with family, because when they go wrong, it creates drama. You've already been very generous by giving her a 30% discount, and by working more yourself to cover the cost of her missing rent at the cost of your own health, in return for which she has ignored all attempts from you to communicate. She was offered a discounted rental, not a chance to freeload, and she's worn that out too much. Not the a-hole. It's not your responsibility to house her, and she's thrown your generosity back in your face. Not the a-hole. Is there a reason she hasn't got a job in the last 8 months? Why should you have to pick up extra work in order for her to live for free in one of your homes? Not only has she been living for free, it sounds like you have been paying her utilities as well. You gave her 4 months more than the 3 months you usually give. Tell your parents and uncles that they are more than welcome to support her and provide a place for her to live. But you and one of your children have medical issues that require money. If your sister is staying at your revenue generator at a reduced price, or free due to not paying, that negatively impacts your family's quality of life. If you kicked her out of your summer home in the Hamptons, I'd say you were the a-hole. But in this situation, you're not the a-hole.